Good morning and welcome to this week's IGTV. Today I am talking about teen drivers. How do you set boundaries with your teen around driving your car, specifically when it comes to substances, like weed or alcohol? This was a message that I got from a parent a couple weeks ago here on Instagram, and I thought, well, okay, let's do a response to this because I know this is very common, and this is something that many parents are literally terrified about, have tried a lot of things and don't know what else to do. So this one issue of their teenager trying to create the freedom that they want, and plus in a way that you want, is becoming the biggest point of disconnection in your relationship because nothing is working. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. If you're here on Instagram, I'd love a follow. If you're here on YouTube, I would love a subscribe. My name is Allie Payne, and I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, one of the first 70 people in Canada to hold both designations. I am a former, very troubled teen who did all of the things. If you can name it or think about it, or your teen is doing it, I probably did that. I probably did it, yeah. And then have spent decades in therapy and becoming a certified coach, raising two of my own amazing sons who managed to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I did, and cycle breaking, all of the things. So I've been working with parents of teens and tweens for the last 18 years to help you avoid the baffling blow-ups and painful disconnection, stressful silences, to create lasting relationships built on trust and respect, the very trust and respect that you're trying to create anyway. Because I'm just going to say right now that my space, at least here on anywhere you'll find me on social media, is a zero judgment space. I am not here to blame or shame parents. I am a parent and we were all set up to fail. So there's that. We were not set up to understand the adolescent brain and a lot of the emotional challenges that they're going through that perhaps you didn't, and how the readily accessible substances now are impacting a lot of things that perhaps did not happen in your life. And how do you parent? How do you keep your teenagers safe, and how do you parent them through this without being passive or being their bestie, and still having them understand basic rules around using your vehicle, let alone the whole topic of substance use, which I'm not going to get too much into that. Right now, I want to talk specifically about your teenager driving your car when there is vaping or drinking or whatever involved. And I'm going to add a little bit about if they have friends in the car as well. Okay, so if this sounds like you, awesome, stick around. If this is not you, but it sounds like someone that you know is struggling with this, then when I get this posted, I would love if you just share that with them, because I think parent shaming is way too common, and this is not about bad parenting. So let's move on to the solution, or at least how it looks and what's happening. Okay, so I'm just looking at my laptop here because I got some notes that I want to cover. So this can often look and sound like my teenager is drinking or vaping, using marijuana, whatever, and they're starting to drive, and I don't know how do I set boundaries around that just to keep them safe? Because there's so many things. Like, first of all, it's my vehicle, so no. Second of all, there's their own safety and the cost of replacing a vehicle. Then there's all the other people on the road, and keeping them safe. And then there's, again, the whole substance use and the impact on the brain. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot. I'm not going to cover all that in one live because that's a little too much. Hi, Monique. Okay, so this mama messaged me and said that her teen is drinking and she's terrified about him using the car. Like, how does she trust him to use her car? And I think we need to be really honest here that is the crux of the conversation, is about trust. Now, the way that your teenager, and this is a normal dynamic between parents and teens, okay, normal dynamic. I just realized I'm not using my headphones. That's awesome. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Oh, thank you, AI. Thank you for that. That's great. 2 thumbs up is apparently, so congratulations for me for not wearing my headphones. I hope you can hear me clearly. For the dynamic between parents and teens is that parents are literally just trying to keep their teenager safe, like constantly. It's like a mouse in a maze. Oh, thank you, money. Like it's like a mouse in a maze, and you're always trying to like just no, not that. Whoa, don't go too close. You know, you're like trying to keep them safe. And teenagers are always experiencing that as you don't trust me and you're trying to control me. Parents are trying to keep them safe. Teenagers feel controlled and you don't trust me. Now that is normal. I just want to say that is like a normal function of the parent-teen relationship that's going to happen. It's how you navigate it, which is why I do what I do, because I want you to feel empowered that there are ways for you to teach your teenager right from wrong and like laws and legal and to make great choices when you're not around. And I want your teenager to, even though they might feel a little controlled or pissy about your limitations or boundaries, but to feel as though you do trust them, because you cannot have connection without trust. And connection has been scientifically proven to be the greatest point of influence that a parent will ever have with their child. Connection. So that's what I'm talking about here, okay? Now, if you're like me, you were raised, Gen X, Gen Y, maybe Gen Z, you might have experienced connection to sound or feel like control. And this is how we were set up to fail. And your parents aren't wrong or bad either. So please don't pick up the phone and start talking all spicy to them. They were also set up to fail. So there's stuff that we've known for decades now that I'm going to incorporate in this conversation that is going to help, that's going to empower you to understand how to connect even around really challenging, difficult conversations like teens driving and substance use. Okay. All right. So I just discovered my teens using marijuana and now they're asking to drive the car. Like, how do I handle this responsibility? I'm struggling with setting boundaries for my teen about driving. They don't see the substance use as a big deal and I'm terrified. My teen is arguing with that marijuana doesn't affect their ability to drive. I strongly disagree, but I feel powerless as far as getting through to them. My teen wants greater independence and I want that for them, but the marijuana use has me questioning everything. So what can I do? I'm terrified my teen is possibly going to drive while under the influence. So how do I trust them to make safe choices? So if any of those sound familiar to you, yay. Okay. So here is what you have probably already tried. And maybe AI will give me more. Yeah, see there, yay, those fireworks are for you. I love the AI, don't you? Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. So here's some of the things that you have probably already tried. And again, I'm not shaming you, yay, this is good. You've probably already tried. You've probably tried to have a more open conversation with your teen about the dangers of driving under the influence or just the substance use on their brain. You've probably tried to have that conversation, emphasizing the legal risks, the safety concerns, all of that. Yes, of course, because as the parent, you want to teach your teenager right from wrong. So you want to inform them, right? Okay, I'm not going to do 2 thumbs up because we don't need more fireworks. Here's the irony. This is what your teenager hears. Wah, 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 wah. Like Charlie Brown's teacher, anytime, and this is the backside of just trying to be a good parent. When you are trying to purely inform your teenager you're not even at setting boundaries yet. You're just trying to inform them about the basic risks of driving under the influence. Okay, because again, teenagers believe that they are 6 feet tall and bulletproof. That's part of their adolescent brain, okay? They feel lectured. You're trying to inform them, they feel lectured. So that is number one thing I'm going to say, don't bother. You can mention it. You can make a couple brief statements, okay, that, but they better be correct. Like your brain is whatever percent more likely to miss basic cues when it's under the influence, or your brain's reaction time, which is important when you're driving. Your brain's reaction time is this much percentage decreased when you're under the influence. And you can drop in a 1 or 2 statement thing like that, but I'm sorry, that is all. Or maybe you say your brain is XYZ less reactive when you're under the influence, and a ticket, if you are pulled over and found to be under the influence, this is the current cost, or something like that. But I am telling you for free, if you do more than 2 of those statements, you are now lecturing. Not in your perspective, not in your experience, but in your teen's perspective. So they've already shut you out. So, and this is just so lovely, like of so many wonderfully well-intended, deeply caring parents, is they will send their teenager a whole bunch of research, or here's the studies, or here's the statistics of how many people have car accidents under the influence last year, and blah, blah, blah. Do not waste your time and energy sending your teenager all of the studies and the data that prove you're right. Because I think that's the point right there, is what you're doing is proving you're right. And I'm not saying you're not. You're proving that you're right, which then there's only one outcome of that for your teenager. You're proving them wrong. How much do you love to be proven wrong? How much would you love it if there's something like that you really want? Okay. I'm not saying that you're not informed or you're not intelligent, but how much would you love it if there was something that you really wanted, okay, and then someone started telling you why it was a bad idea, and then sending you like a barrage of texts with like studies or research on why it was a bad idea and how it was going to fail and it's never going to work? How do you feel about them now? Probably not real, like block, right? So it makes sense as a parent because you're trying to inform them. All your teen hears is a lecture. Don't do it. That is not actually an open discussion as you intended it. I get where you're going with it. That's not working, okay? I will tell you what it is in a second here. I'm just going to go through this list, okay? So you might have tried imposing really strict rules about not driving under the influence, along with like super clear consequences if the rule is broken, such as losing all their privileges, or being grounded for the rest of their life or something. You might have tried that too. And that's, again, it's a good thing. But what probably came across in the way that you were communicating it, because of the way that we learned this stuff, because it's not taught anywhere else, is that your communication probably came across as the big heavy, like kind of the prison guard, like it's like, well, if you do, and if you, like, you're pointing out what happens if they fail. All you're doing is pointing out, this is what's going to happen if they fail. Well, this is what's going to happen if you fail. Well, this is going to, so what your teen does again is kind of one of these, you pick which finger. They do the giant, like, screw you, right? Yeah, well, screw you, because all you're saying is, I'm going to fail, and that you don't trust me. You're trying to control me, you don't trust me, and here you are trying to keep them safe by setting really strict rules and consequences, which there's nothing inherently wrong with. It's the way they're communicated, okay? Also doesn't work. In fact, your teenager is more likely, researched, to do what they're going to do anyway, hide it from you, and be more defiant in whatever consequence comes along, because when they don't think you trust them, they also don't feel respected. And that's the double-edged sword, because all you're trying to build with your teen is respect, because you want to trust and respect them. Trust and respect are two of the key foundations of connection and a healthy relationship, okay? So it's not going to come via heavy handing, okay? It also will not come from being permissive. So if that's what you think I'm saying, please stick with me. Open your mind and just be willing, okay? So education, again, by providing educational materials or enrolling them in safe. Now, enrolling them in safe driving is awesome. Enrolling your teenager in some kind of driver's ed or some kind of professional driver program, that's an awesome. Yeah, that's a good one. That will work. But providing educational materials that they're supposed to read and they're supposed to study and they're supposed to like be informed about all of the risks and blah, blah, blah. Lecture. Not going to work, okay? You may have tried monitoring apps and devices. Now, if you've been around my channel for a while, you know I am not a fan of monitoring apps because teenagers are not stupid and they also know how to override a lot of them. But I am going to make a comment about that in a second. Okay, a way that can actually work. Okay, that as far as building trust. So finding out like your vehicle's like speed, location, driving habits, which not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, I'll come back to that. You might have tried sobriety tests. Maybe you've said to your teen, because I know you're drinking and you're using weed, you can use my car, but in order to use my car, you need to pass some kind of a breathalyzer or some kind of sobriety test that proves that you are not currently under the influence. Okay? Again, as a parent, yes, that makes complete sense. It makes complete sense, right? You know that they're vaping or they're using substances, alcohol, what have you, and you don't want them getting behind the wheel when they're under the influence. So what's the easiest way to do that? Test them. I get it. Here's the problem with that. What your teenager goes through again, and this may not be something that you have considered. I'm sure that it's not. Is that it is a wildly negative reinforcement tool because it's about them having to prove innocence. So it's guilty until proven innocent. That's one of the downsides of drug testing or sobriety testing before your teen uses the car. Now, again, are there certain circumstances where that would be necessary and a good idea? Yes, there are. I'm simply saying as a general rule for your teen to use your car, if you are using a sobriety test of any kind, it is going to erode trust and respect, the very trust and respect you're trying to build, because it is a guilty until proven innocent. Your teenager, for them, it's actually humiliating. It's humiliating. I know that's not what you intend whatsoever. You are literally just trying to keep them safe, not to mention your investment in your vehicle and your child. You're trying to keep them safe. It is humiliating for them. And humiliation is the starting point for shame. So a shame story around, again, being guilty until proven innocent, it erodes, crashes through, bulldozes any form of trust or respect. Again, the same stuff you're trying to build. So they are far more likely, again, to lie about it, do what they're going to do anyway, defy any kind of consequences, because they will reflect the same lack of respect to you that they are experiencing from you. I'm not saying you're being disrespectful. I'm saying they're going to mirror the same lack of respect they experience from you. Is that clear? And so the sobriety testing also, unless it's very certain circumstances, it's a hot no. Okay? All right. So you may also have tried writing a contract. That makes sense, right? Seems like it makes sense. Like making a contract with written outlines, expectations, rules, The consequences are all in there as far as them driving under the influence. If something happens, it's signed by both of you so that you have a really clear understanding and commitment. Contracts can work. Again, I'm going to say this. When you start out of the gate with a contract, because you know your teen is using substances and they want to drive your car, starting out of the gate with a contract is again a much subtler way of saying guilty until proven innocent. You're doing something that we know isn't going to go well, so we're just letting you know up front that when you fail, this is what's going to happen. Now, there's nothing wrong with preset consequences, no, but when it's in the form of a contract, it is a lot easier for your teenager to say, oh, see, you already believe I'm going to screw up. So it's that negative reinforcement thing when you come out of the gate with a contract, okay? Again, not saying that a contract is never a good thing. I wouldn't come out of the gate with it, okay? All right. Here is what I want to talk about does work. Okay, and I'm actually, I am covering this starting April 29th in my upcoming 5-day challenge, 5 days to a better relationship with your teen. I'm going to tell you how to get in on that in a second. It's only $25 US, and over 5 days, I'm going to give you these exact tools and the specific word-for-word scripts so that you can begin to have some of these conversations, set boundaries that work, and end this negative cycle of arguing, power, struggly, pissing match thing that has you and your teen in kind of a headlock right now of disconnection, and you're not actually making the progress that you want, and so they're not as safe as you want them to be, and they're being a lot more defiant and disrespectful than what you might like as well, okay? So I'll tell you about that in a second. So here is what does work. When you're approaching a teenager to set a boundary, which I'll talk about in a second, first of all, you're the adult. You're the leader in the relationship. Surprise. So all research shows that parents set the tone. Parents are a greater influence in setting the tone of the relationship with your teen because you are the leader in the home. You simply by age, influence, resources, you are setting the tone in the home. So for you to start building this respect, it doesn't mean having an open conversation, again, that I said before, that comes with all this data and lecturing and blah, blah, blah. That's a lecture. It's not a conversation, especially with a teenager. It is not a conversation unless you are listening more than you're talking. Listen more than you talk. Listen more than you talk. So if you're like, well, that's all grand, Allie, but my teen literally won't even talk to me. Like they won't have a conversation with me. Well, might be because of how you've defined conversation. I don't know. Here's what I would offer. First, your expectation that your teen is going to come to the table and have this like super mature, emotionally regulated conversation with you about the safety and dangers of driving. It's not going to happen. Let it go. It's not going to happen. And just because it does not happen does not mean that you are powerless or defeated. Hell to the, okay, thank you AI for the balloons. No. It just means that your teenager doesn't have a current level of trust, respect, and connection with you in their perspective to sit down at the table and have a more open conversation. Just because the conversation doesn't happen, which of course I would love for you to and recommend as a great starting place, doesn't mean you don't move to step 2. So if step 1 does not work, continue to step 2, not go back to step 1 in this case. So step 1 is, if you can have an open conversation, but here again, I want to frame that for you. The conversation looks like you listen a lot more than you talk. It looks like being curious, not critical, not controlling, just be curious. Ask a question. All right, what does driving our car look like for you? Like, what do you got in mind? What do you think? Is it driving to your sporting activities and carpooling some of your friends? Is it driving to much later parties on weekends? Is it changing the current curfew that you have? Is it give me an, like, what do you mean? Because if you're assuming, because you know your teenager's using substances, if you're assuming a bunch of stuff, that's not going to work either, even if you're not far from wrong. So you got to be curious first. Be curious, ask questions. Tell me, okay, you want to drive our car. All right. Give me an example, or like, what's a specific situation? Because start with like one situation. Don't like do the whole, you're going to drive the car, blah, blah, blah. No, let's talk about one. Okay, you have a thing coming up on Friday. Great. Let's talk about that. What does it look like for you to drive our car? Just let them answer, for heaven's sakes. They are an independent, autonomous human being who can actually think for themselves. So ask them, get curious before you go in with a whole load of assumptions. And fear. Natural, normal, but fear will derail this every single time. Okay, so I need you to check your fear and all the worst case scenarios of catastrophizing that you're going to do. And I want you to have this conversation where you start by being curious. Okay, so ask them a couple questions. Okay, then here's the key of this conversation. This is an underlying thing you don't need to say, but this is where I need you to think. Another thing I need you to think, okay? I need you to want for your teen what they want in a way that works for you. They want freedom. They want autonomy. That is two of the key needs of the adolescent brain. They want freedom and they want autonomy. It looks like they want adult level responsibilities, adult level freedom. They want adult level freedom with childlike responsibilities. That's what it looks like. That does not make them entitled. That's a function of the adolescent brain. Okay, they're not an adult, they're not a child. They push against everything that feels like a child, and they want everything they see you have, but don't yet have the life experience to know what it took for you to get that. How could they? Okay, so I want you to go into the conversation wanting for them what they want. Autonomy and freedom are generally the top things, okay? Connecting with friends, like all that stuff, okay? We are not talking about the substances right now. How do you go into the conversation to be curious, ask them what they think, what they have in mind, what does it look like? Because when you show that you want for them what they want, it's easier for you to now end that little piece with in a way that works for you, which is the boundary part. Okay, I want you to empathize with them. Empathy, one of the most powerful connection tools, right? Yeah, totally. I get that you want, the freedom to just go be with your friends or go grab like a something from the corner store. I want you to like just go through the drive-through because you want a burger, you want to like something. Cool. Of course you want that. I remember wanting that when I was a teen too. Don't talk a lot about yourself. It's not about you. You empathize with their desire. Normalize it. It's true and real. Okay? You're not telling them, oh, well, aren't you so entitled because you want to drive my car and who do you think you are? No, when you normalize their desire and their experience in that, their feelings in that, that's connecting. It's not agreeing, it's connecting, okay? So you're curious. You know the mindset that you've got to arrive at this conversation. You're not expecting this to be a very long adult level conversation because it's not. And if your teenager won't participate in this part, cool, skip to number 2, okay? Now in the conversation, you might be able to now move to number 2, which is kind of the limitations and boundaries, because we are specifically talking about how do you trust your teen when you know that they're using substances. Now you got to be real careful with how you bring this up. Really cautious. Because I'm telling you, even if you do it like an angel sent from heaven, your teenager's going to feel criticized. That is also a function of the adolescent brain. They will feel criticized and judged 100% of the time. Okay? They're hyper emotionally sensitive to that experience, and you could be saying the most perfect thing, and that's how they're going to feel. So I just need you to be with that for a sec, okay? So when you let them talk first, right? Because you're curious, you're listening more than you talk. So you let them talk first, then you can say, after you've normalized, you've empathized, then you can say, I want you to have this freedom. I want you to have this kind of autonomy. It's so a cool part of being a teenager. I want to be real honest with you. I'm worried. I'm worried about, vaping, or I'm worried about weed, or I'm worried about drinking. And I want to know if, what kind of agreement we can create about that. Now, they might freak out right then and leave the table. You don't trust me and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's how they feel. So let them react. So your step one, the conversation, it might have 5 little teeny attempts over 5 different days. So let it. But just remember, if it's not happening, you're still moving to the boundary part, okay? So I also want to clarify this, which is not what you and I are taught, and this is a big part of this whole teen driving and substance use thing. Trust is not earned. Trust being earned is a really convenient way of you saying, I'm going to sit over here and be real right about all my fears, feeling safe, not having to be vulnerable or participate in a vulnerable level of connection with you. And I'm going to wait until you meet a certain standard, sometimes that I can clarify, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's a moving goalpost. I'm going to wait until you qualify under my standard to prove you are trustworthy. No, your teenager's already trustworthy. Even if they've done some shady stuff, they might already be trustworthy. Okay, but this is a function of respect. This is a function of respect, and your teenager's always reflecting back the level of respect that they experience from you. So for you in this experience, I want you to understand, again, science has proven that trust is given. Why? Because trust is one of the most vulnerable things you can do in a relationship, and it takes a lot of courage for both people to meet in the middle and be in that awkward, afraid space, giving trust first. Okay? So that's a whole other video I have, and I've covered a lot. We can talk about that after. If you believe right from the get-go that your teenager needs to earn your trust on this is going to be real hard, because you are not fundamentally coming to this conversation with a level of respect that your teenager will sniff out before you ever even open your mouth. So it's not going to go well. Okay. So, I want you to, then you can go into the boundary. Then you can say, okay, about this certain situation, I think when you can, now you could bring up driver's ed. Again, driver's ed, great thing. Yes. Setting boundaries is all about love and respect. It's not about control or compliance or earning trust. That's what you and I were taught, but it's actually wildly untrue, which again, I'm covering in my 5-day challenge is coming up. The actual nuts and bolts of that, and giving you the scripts to kind of flip that to the research. So now you can start setting a boundary and saying, okay, well, if you're going to drive my car, then what feels right for me. Now, the definition of a boundary, this is from Prentice Hemphill. The definition of a boundary is the place at which you simultaneously love and respect yourself first, because boundaries come from the ownership of an experience, not the projection of it. You love and respect yourself and your teen. Now, let's be honest. That's not often dancing on the head of a pin, because right? It's more often sounds like different sides of the Grand Canyon, because that's as close as you can get, because you're trying to keep your teen safe and your teenager's feeling controlled and you don't trust me. So you just are doing your best. You're saying, okay, well, if you're driving my car, I would like you to be home by this time, and, this many people in the car, or if you're driving my car, I'll go back to monitoring apps for a second. When you're driving my vehicle, this is something that I'm going to ask then, is that we have a monitoring app so that I know where you are, or that you're safe and that you're okay. Now, maybe you just put an air tag on your car. I don't know. And not use a monitoring app. It's not going to tell you how fast the car is going necessarily. I don't think it's going to tell you where the car is. It's not going to tell you if the car got in an accident. I don't know. I'm not a fan of monitoring apps because, again, your teen can feel very not trusted. Unless you frame it as this is purely about your safety and I will only use this app when you're driving. Okay. That's it. So then you can talk about that. Now you can say then, I just want to be clear with you. There is no substance use when you're using my car. Period. That's it. Because otherwise you're getting into shame. Now, the natural consequences would be if they got into an accident. Yeah, they are going, there's a natural consequence to that. And they probably, in my view, are going to be paying for some of that. Yes, they are. If you find vapes or anything like alcohol or empty containers, anything in your car after they finish driving. Not that I recommend going out and doing a 100% like private investigator check of your car, because that, again, it will instantly erode trust. But if you do check your vehicle and you find something, then you say, okay, look, you and I had an agreement. This is what I found in the car. So there's no driving for like a week. Now, your first thing your teen's going to say is, oh, it's not mine, it's my friend's. Because they think we were born yesterday, God bless them, right? Whatever. And you say, well, it doesn't matter if it's your friends or not. Because when you are driving my car, you are responsible for what's happening in the car. And I have made it clear there's no substance use in my car. So you're not shaming the substance use. You're just saying, look, I found this. Maybe it was your friend's. I mean, it could be true. You don't know that. Hard to believe, I get, but... And you go, okay, well, you can talk to your friends about it, but there's no driving my car for a week. And that's it. You don't need to play the big heavy. You don't need to no, you don't need to do that. Now, you might still get your teenager to look up, or to have a look at, this is the price of before you ever drive the car, okay? I want you to look at the current price of what tickets cost. Speeding, driving under the influence, driving with too many people in the car, because they like to do that, right? When they're getting their learners and they've got more people in the car than they're allowed to be driving. Maybe that's one thing you get them to do. You just go look up the price of the tickets. So now you know. And if any of those tickets occur, I will not be paying them. So I'm just saying that right now. You don't do it with this heavy hand of condemnation and condescension and critical. You're just doing it just so you know, these are the ticket costs, or driving distracted, right, while you're on your phone. Maybe that's another agreement. While you're driving in my vehicle, your phone goes in the glove box, or your phone, goes in the trunk or something. But if you're also not modeling that, that's a tough ask. So you be careful what you're modeling with your phone in your own car, okay? Now, natural consequences, I want you to make this part clear, whether or not they were part of this open conversation, whether or not. If there are tickets, you will be paying those. If there is an accident, I will walk you through it, because they're going to need to know, how do you deal with the insurance agent? How do you deal with the other vehicle? What about the other driver? What about the passengers in your car? What about you are not going to do it by crapping all over them and shaming. You're okay, I'll walk you through it, the process. You will be making phone calls. You will be doing any paperwork. You will be doing that. And you see, learning, that's not passive parenting. That's saying, I'm not rescuing you from this consequence of your choice. I will walk you through the consequence. I'm not going to rescue you from it. But I'm also not going to crap all over you and humiliate and shame you through it. So when something else, or if something else happens, you stop coming to me with the truth. You stop coming to me, because now you've eroded the same trust that you're trying to build. Okay. So again, there are some technology solutions that you can use as far as disabling the car. As far as sobriety tests, unless your teenager has proven repeatedly that they are driving under the influence and you know that for sure, I would not use a sobriety test. And if you do need to do them, I would set a timeline on when you're going to do them and why, and then remove them. It's not a from now forever, because otherwise it's continued negative and reinforcement and humiliation. It is a natural consequence. But other than that, no. You got to be real transparent and you got to be real clear. Okay, so is this nerve-wracking? Yes. I have 2 teens. They both took my car the day they got their driver's license, and they went out with friends, and we had agreements about what that looked like. And yes, I did have I was just tracking their phones, so I knew, where they were. One of my kids got my vehicle stuck in a little bit of a ditch. He just kind of took a turn a little bit too wide and had to call for a tow truck, and he told me about it, and we were like, okay, well, I guess you're calling a tow truck and you'll pay the bill. Like it's an accident. It wasn't on purpose. And he was embarrassed, and we just love him through it. We didn't rescue him. We love him through it. Okay. So creating these safe driving rules for your teen, you have to be part of the vulnerability that you're encouraged to model trust, respect, and connection that is required for connection, while setting the boundaries, but not becoming from this constant lecturing of safety and the data and why you shouldn't and all the damage and all the bad things that could happen. It will not work. You come at it from, I'm afraid, and this is new for me too. So how can I want for you what you want in a way that works for me? And if your teenager wants to negotiate with you, then be willing to negotiate. Not give up all your values, but at least be open to negotiating a bit with them so that you're both in it. Now, if that particular time doesn't work and you need to renegotiate, because be like, no. I said this time of curfew, you came home at this time, so no thank you, sir or ma'am, right? Then renegotiate, okay? But playing the righteousness like, well, that's my car and you're gonna have to earn my trust first, and I saw you vape. That's just gonna get you more defiance, disconnection. Your teen's gonna be lying, doing what you don't want them to do anyway. I did it, trust me. Okay, if this is something that you're struggling with as far as like having open conversations with your teen, or you're finding yourself in these power struggles with your teen, or you're feeling hopeless or defeated on how to set effective limits when your teen's already doing what you don't want them to do, and you're not sure how to do that, then I want you to type, once I get this posted, I want you to type challenge in the comments. And I'm going to send you a link. I'm running my 5-day challenge. Starts April 29th. It's $25, and in 5 days, I'm going to give you these exact tools to have conversations like this effectively, set the effective limits so that you feel better about it, so that you lower the power struggle, start increasing trust and respect again, and have the connection and influence that you want with your teenager. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend, and I will see you next week here on IGTV, talking about all things parenting teens. Bye.